Hello everyone, welcome to BU304. The purpose of this video is to step you through the week 5 virtual lab and application activity. So to begin, let's go ahead and select our week 5 virtual application activity. And the purpose of our application activity for this week is to provide a little bit of insight that's building on the concepts from energy solutions, ultimately, what's green energy, sustainability, or just general energy sources or whatnot. And to maintain the spatial context, the virtual lab is really more of I would call it a conceptual reading with a little bit of some mapping and graphics. And so essentially what we'll have you do for the virtual lab this week is to take a look at the reading and the little story maps that are going on in this green infrastructure booklet. And ultimately, this is designed to give you some thought and insight into the application activity as we begin to think about, specifically for the application activity. I have a couple of exercises in there that will help us examine the new AI data centers that are popping up all over the place and or that are planned. So data centers don't necessarily need to be exclusively AI, but they can be connectivity centers like internet or communication or other different types of data repositories. And so for the virtual lab, there's nothing to turn in or to submit for the virtual lab. So the other thing you'll have to do is take a look at this little green infrastructure booklet. That then will take us into the virtual lab. And so the virtual lab, this will build upon some of the planning models, I'll call it. It doesn't need to be sustainability, but there's just different considerations that need to occur for anything that is being built. And for the application activity, we will be building upon that, specifically looking at exploring Minnesota's data center locations and just seeing where they are, understanding those, getting a little bit more familiar with some of the web apps and location models for those data centers. So to begin, go ahead and click the week 5 application activity. Then follow the directions. In this, we're going to explore a web application for data centers and identify the location of data centers in Minnesota, at least of what's currently mapped, and then learn about web application navigation and other location-based mapping. So to that end, go ahead and select this link right here. This is the data center map for Minnesota. And once we are into the site, we're going to navigate, check around the state of Minnesota, and you can click on some of the points profiles to learn more, then either select back on the web browser to return to the main map, or you can always just select the URL here again. And if you're interested in what's going on in the US, you can just do a copy and paste for just the first part of this and see what's going on in the Midwest or the Dakotas, Wisconsin, California, Florida, whatever it might be for you. But I have the URL just really centered on Minnesota. So at least at the current time of the recording here, there are planned data centers going up all the time. There's actually probably more than this in reality that are being built that are just not recorded on here. But in any event, you can use your mouse wheel or the zoom out, zoom in tools on the right-hand portion of your map. But this is going to show the data centers for Minnesota. Now, you can go up here and look at cloud infrastructure and internet exchanges and all these other things too, or go to the map here as well if you wanted to do that where we are now. But I have this already sort of preset for our data centers. And so in Minnesota here, it's mostly centered in and around the metro, maybe a little bit south. Again, specifically for data centers, there are a lot more cloud infrastructure and internet exchanges, though, beyond, that are not included here. So the first thing would be is that you could take a look and just hover your mouse over some of these. For example, we look down here in, I'll pick one of these and maybe in Faribault or something. This tells us that it's a data center, and I can view the profile for this by clicking on profile. And this is saying that it's a planned data center as of present. And what's really interesting as you explore these is checking out the overview and the specs of this, how big it is. This one's 81,000 square feet. And there's not really a ton of other information on this one because it's probably in planning mode yet. But location, okay, there's nothing really too much on that. But to return back to the map, I would just hit your back arrow up here a couple of times, and that should take us back here to the Minneapolis. Oh, that says Minneapolis, but just because most of the data centers are around the metro here. But if we pick one out here in, let's see, all right, let's take the Cogent data center. Let's look at that profile. Okay. So not a lot of information on this one either, but it does have some of the other specs. Maybe this was a planned one as well. A lot of these are going up, and there's questions of sustainability on these to power everything from AI, other different types of data uses. Okay, let's see if we can look at this one, ABCom. Okay, so this one has limited specs here, an overview. Okay, so this one, there's not a lot of information on there either. We're kind of striking out here. But if we do go down, and I didn't look at every single one of these here, but if we look over in Woodbury here, if we pick on one of these, this Iron Gate data center, if we look at the profile for that, here's some information, specs, ecosystem, location, but an overview. So under the site characteristics, this is a 21-acre site, and it cannot fall within a 200-year floodplain, not in any proximity to railroad tracks, and no proximity to chemical plants or prospective terrorist targets or what have you. So these are site characteristics. When we're looking at suitability or planning mechanisms, these are all very important, and where, at least in this case, I don't know who actually owns this one. It might be under an LLC, but sometimes Microsoft or Amazon or Meta or whatever it is, they might go under an LLC just so it doesn't say Meta or Microsoft under it, possibly. So, but nevertheless, there are site restrictions. And this is one thing that's really important to look at. So I reference a little bit of this in our week 5 application activity. But if we back up here again and look, some of the, oh, I just jumped out one more layer here, but okay. So inside of the metro, in and around Minneapolis, St. Paul, that's where most of these will be. But you kind of look to see if some of them are more like internet or communication. You'll be able to see those by clicking on some of the individual dots here. But so take a peek at those, and then in your application activity, after you've had a chance to look at those, what cities have a greater trend of total data center locations? So is it like Woodbury? Is it more like Eden Prairie / another city that kind of has the trend? And you may not see one either, but it's just something to look where those different types of total data centers are located. And the second one here is examine the Farmington area and what's going on with those planned data centers that are located there. And then one that I just kind of mocked up here for you was that of Woodbury. And pick on, or I think there are a couple of sites there, but you can click on, select one of those and pick one of those to examine. Then look at the overview here of that data center. Jot down a couple responses, and then upload those in a Word document into Canvas for week 5. And there you go for the virtual lab and application activity for this week. So I hope that everyone is having a great week. If you have any questions, problems, please let me know. And as always, please use your St. Mary's login, your St. Mary's access to gain access to these documents. Just due to security, I know we've posted some announcements on this or made some folks aware of this, that for security reasons, we prefer that any internal workings that people use their verified St. Mary's email or anything directly internal that corresponds or relates to anything in Canvas. So otherwise, folks, God bless and have a great rest of the week.